Welcome to another fight podcast. It's your boy Mehran. As always, I'm here with Dave.
What's going on, everybody?
Um, so it's been a little bit of time since our last episode. We wanted to start this episode by acknowledging uh, Coach and brother Naazim Richardson. He has passed along to the hereafter. Uh, may Allah bless his soul, and we pray for him and family, and hope everyone there is doing well. It's a huge loss to the boxing community and the combat sports world in general. He was a big pillar of everything that went around in boxing, in my opinion, everything good about boxing. Um, do you want to talk about him first, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to brother Nazim, man, to me, he is like, aside from like Bernard Hopkins, he is Philly boxing. Like, he is indicative of what everything about Philly boxing is, from the style to the way that they talk to how they fight in the ring. That is Philly boxing right there. He was
And
Bernard
being Muslim.
Hopkins training. He was Shane Mosley's trainer, Steve Cunningham, Carl Dagan. Like, he was an incredible trainer. I feel like a lot of people, like semi-casual boxing fans, probably know him best for catching Antonio Margarito's loaded hand wraps. He fought Shane Mosley, but you know, it was like, for me as a boxing fan, anytime there was like a clip or someone pulled him aside and talked to him, I always watched it, no matter what. And he also showed a ton of love to like DMV boxing as well. Like, he was one of the few people that was talking about Jared Hurd before he was even a champion. So like, he was just so knowledgeable. He was just so indicative of like that old school inner city boxing like figure. And like,
And
it
he was
really hurt me a lot because I was my favorite trainer ever. So like, that was like, I was really shocked by that.
and he was very present. He came around DMV boxing every so often as well. Like he would show his face. Like I remember seeing him once or twice, just going to local fights. Like he made that trip down
Mm-hmm.
95. Um, you know, all the things you said definitely are true, and like in that he's a staple of Philly boxing, even down to him being Muslim is just like
Mm-hmm.
it's very typical of like Philadelphia area and
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia boxing, and his style and the way he talked and the way he thought about the boxing game was very, very, I think, quintessential, also American, like
Mm-hmm.
American in the sense of Black America, right? Like very quintessential, like
Right.
American in the way he thought about it. There's this one quote about him distinguishing Broner from Mayweather. Broner is an offensive fighter who has good defense. Mayweather is a defensive fighter who has incredible offense. And like just like quips like that were very, like he was so insightful without having to use like long-winded explanations. Something that you and I aren't.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Like, he
yeah,
just gets it. Like, even like when he, the most, like, one of the most iconic clips is from the Margarita fight when he was telling Shane Mosley, "You got to swim without getting wet." Like,
yes,
perfect boxing talk. Like,
yeah. I
and
was
it's
teeing
just
up
like,
that. Glad you
to
hit it on.
go back to like the whole like him being Muslim. That's very important because like, for a lot of his fighters, he was like also that sort of like imam figure as well as a trainer. I know,
Very
like,
much a spiritual guide.
yeah,
Yes.
Bernard Hopkins, that was like his like father figure essentially, and like more in boxing and in spirituality. So it's like, he's very important, and also like very indicative of what I feel like a good example of a boxing trainer should be. Like, that is what it is.
And you didn't hear too much controversy around him. You didn't hear too much like there's some trainers who really look for the limelight here. And you
Right.
didn't really hear that about him. And he was only like 55, right? He
Yeah,
wasn't that
he
old.
wasn't super old, but he's had health problems for a while. I remember in like the late 2000, like 2007, 2008, he had a stroke. There was like a brief period of time where Bernard had a different trainer for a little bit because he was recovering from that. So he's had some health problems for a while, but he still was able to like make that recovery and then go on to have even more success as a trainer after that. But it's just like, you don't really get a lot of trainers like that anymore. The ones that like will be at all of the fights, the ones that are willing to talk to you and like give you good insight. I remember I was reading some tweets from Breadman, who's another Philly boxing trainer. He trains Julian Williams. He was like, I respect Brother Naazim so much because he was there when J-Rock got knocked out by Jamal Charlo. He was the last person in the locker room with me, and he was also the last person in the locker room when he beat Jared Hurt. So it's like, he's always there for his people, whether at their lowest lows or their highest highs.
And he also had the unique ability to branch out, right? He trained Badr Hari for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Who's a kickboxing champion, K1, and that's all points to him, like you're saying, and like you're getting at, about him being a genuine person. And so this podcast definitely, memorializes him, and we look to hopefully the best for his family and anyone survived by him. And it's just, it's like you're saying, you don't get a lot of people like him in this community, right? Especially not in the boxing community, people who are genuine. Yeah, and I don't know if ever, right? Because like he is someone who is not necessarily the rule. He is the exception to the rule, which is why he's so special, right? And exactly. I would say, like, to him, we say, surely we belong to Allah, and to Allah we will return. Inna lillahi wal raji'un. So, peace be to him and his family. In other boxing news, moving on to a less somber topic, it looks like we have a big fight coming up.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know if it's a big. So, last night we were talking about. Well, it's big in the pay-per-view sense.
Yeah,
it's going to be very big in that sense, and there are two very large people fighting. I don't think they're cutting weight for this.
Yeah.
So Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. are scheduled for an exhibition match soon, right?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I was watching a YouTube video about this guy. He's a chiropractor, actually. He's actually the chiropractor for Jackson Wink.
Oh, about Bo, what's his name?
Hightower, yeah.
Bo Hightower.
Yeah. So he was
Joe Rogan thinks that guy is a kook, by the way. He thinks he's like a fake.
I don't really watch his stuff for the chiropractor stuff. I watch it just for when he has interesting people on there. So he had Roy Jones on there recently, like maybe like a month or two ago. And he was like hinting at this. He was like, "Oh, Mike's coming back. I always wanted that fight, even when I was a pro. So, like if he's trying to fight, I'm trying to fight." And a month or two later, we get a 8-round exhibition between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
I don't know if this is better or worse than the Evander Holyfield Tyson rumors that were happening a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure if this is better or worse, because Roy Jones has continued to box in Russia and has continued to gotten the shit beat out of him, right?
Not recently.
Not recently. But he went to Russia, and he went to like fight in Russia for a long time.
For sure.
At least Mike and Holyfield took a long break.
Yeah. I mean, it's an exhibition. It's gonna be headgear. And it's going to be.
Is there going to be headgear? I heard there wasn't going to be headgear. That's why I'm confused.
If there's not going to be headgear, I don't think I'm going to watch it.
Because people keep saying like, "Oh, it's an exhibition, but there won't be headgear," and I'm just like, then it's not an exhibition. That sounds like a pro match.
Right.
If you're going by pro rules, unless they have bigger gloves or something.
Yeah, I don't know. If it doesn't have headgear, I don't know if I can support that.
Listen, you know how like last night I was very upset on the Twitter about how, Shogun and Lil Nog are fighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we were saying like, yeah, you could just find this fight in Langley Park or Hyattsville. You can find this fight in like Forestville. You can find this fight like in Greenbelt. Like, you want to see two 50-year-old black uncles fight, go somewhere else, not to pay-per-view. This is ridiculous.
So
man.
I think people have gotten enamored with
pad porn.
Yeah.
So it's all pad porn.
So I think what people have to understand is like, yes, is Mike Tyson probably faster than most 54-year-old men on pads? Yes.
Yes.
Is he anywhere as close to where he was even when he retired? Absolutely not. Like, and anybody who has a trained eye in boxing can kind of tell that those punches are not coming off the same way. They look the same, and they probably hurt. I know they hurt, but it's not like this.
It's not about punching.
This
It's
is
about
not
not
prime.
getting punched.
Right. This is not prime Mike Tyson that we're
Yeah.
going to be watching fight Roy Jones Jr.
Here's the issue. A lot of 50-year-old men can hit very, very hard. They just can't get hit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the issue. Like, I can fight a lot of swole 50-year-old men that can hit you really hard. But if you push them, they're going to fall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think I'm going to discuss who I think is going to win because
no one wins.
Ridiculous.
Everyone loses.
But it's interesting. I think Roy has fought relatively recency compared to Mike. And he's also in shape. He's not fat.
Okay, yes, they're both relatively in shape for their age.
No, I don't know. I know Roy Jones Jr. is not like cut up, but he is not.
Oh yeah, they both have Mexican supplements on their side too. You understand this?
Oh,
like they're not.
Mike Tyson's pretty clean right now,
except for all the weed.
Yeah, but weed's not weed. Whatever.
Listen, I just think if Mike Tyson is fighting, there's probably a little trend hard, eat clean going on. You know what I'm saying?
Did you see the promo?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, the promo was incredible.
Dude, it's amazing. Listen, it's Mike Tyson. Like, he's an amazing fighter. He can hit really hard. I just don't think 50-plus-year-old men should be fighting who have been fighting all their lives. This is not B-Hop who like didn't fight, forever and then decided to fight. These are two men who have already been through it, have already proven everything they need to prove, have ascended to the number one spots in the sport respectively at their times. They're already legends. What is the point of this?
Roy Jones won a silver medal in 1988. We didn't even, yeah, that's crazy.
We weren't born.
That he's even like, oh, I'm going to still fight.
Like, why? Why do you need to do this? And that's my biggest issue is someone should be telling them like this. What is this for? Right? Yeah. Is this because like you want to scratch the itch again, then go spar in a couple like sparring matches and call it a day? Like
if it's a true headgear, heavier gloves exhibition, I'm cool with it. I'm okay with it.
I mean, what do you think of Jake Paul fighting Nate Robinson on the undercard? This is a joke. Listen, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's a joke, and we kind of want to be a serious fighting podcast, but like,
it was too big not to talk about it.
Yeah, we can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. So let's move on and talk about some real boxing. You want to do a recap of the most recent card?
Yeah. So DAZN is back. Golden Boy had a card headlined by Virgil Ortiz fighting Samuel Vargas. Many of my boxing people who are going to be tuning into this know Samuel Vargas from the Amir Khan fight recently. He was also stopped by Errol Spence and Danny Garcia, I believe. So this was supposed to be like a tune-up, I guess. A step up, kind of, but also a tune-up.
So I don't... It is a tune-up, right? Which is kind of weird because, like...
So, Virgil was pretty dominant overall, for sure. But there was some things. Not like big things, but enough things to make you kind of like, he might need 2 or 3 more fights before he's in like the world title thing.
There were moments when Virgil Ortiz looked like he was in trouble, which shouldn't have happened in this fight, right? Mm-hmm. There were moments, I think, that we saw the beginnings of a plan to beat Virgil Ortiz if he steps up in talent, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, if someone who's a better fighter watches that fight, they're going to be able to look at and capitalize on some of the mistakes he was making.
But goddamn, that motherfucker is scary.
But that's the other side of things, right? It doesn't really matter because that dude hits really, really,
and
really hard.
He's very technical too. I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. But he has very good technique, better footwork than I've seen before. But that's also because he hasn't gone that far before, and he probably hasn't had to use a lot of the tools that he has like that. And Samuel Vargas gave him not a lot of trouble, but enough trouble for it to be like interesting, more interesting than we all thought it was going to be. So especially since a couple of fights before, he fought a guy, Mauricio Herrera, who's like the spoiler of all spoilers. Like nobody looks good against Mauricio Herrera. I thought, and a lot of people thought that Andy Garcia lost to him a long time ago when they were at 140. And he knocked out Mauricio Herrera. No one has ever done that before. And Herrera was washed at that point, but still, like,
kind of old.
That was supposed to be what I assume Samuel Vargas ended up being. That was that fight, but it wasn't. So it was interesting. I still think he has a lot going for him. I definitely think he's going to be a world champion one day.
Oh,
he is not ready for Keith Thurman.
That's actually kind of what I was getting at. Like, I completely agree with you that he's the superior boxer. He's going to be great. But this fight just showed that he has a little bit more to go. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a little bit more left before he fights the Keith Thurmans of the world and before he dominates those two. He has all the right tools. He hits really hard. Like you said, this is the first time we've seen him go far enough where he had to use his footwork and some of his fundamentals. His dad is his trainer, right?
No, his trainer is actually Robert Garcia, Mikey Garcia's
Mikey
brother.
Garcia's bro? Okay, yeah.
And trainer. But, COVID changes a lot of things. So, like,
yeah, I got you.
You couldn't go out to California to train with Robert. So, he didn't. His father was his trainer in the amateurs, though. So, it's not like.
Yeah. Okay. So, his main trainer is Mikey Garcia's brother. Okay.
Yeah. And his father is just, like, lead assistant.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So, like, it's not a huge fall off for him to take the place of Robert and in like COVID times.
And like he still looked great, even with like the small moments we're talking about. I think we're talking about because we are interested in what happens next, not because we are analyzing this fight like he did bad. He did great.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about women's boxing, but like I know Snappy asked to talk for us to talk about this. What the hell was that match?
Look, man, I have no idea.
Like, who were those two women fighting? Like,
I've seen, I forgot her name, Semester, something like that. But I've seen her fight before. She's a beast. But, when I first saw the card and they were talking about it, was like, oh, there's two undefeated fighters fighting. I was like, all right, whatever. But when they were doing the pre-fight, like the pre-fight for that fight, they were like, oh, this woman started boxing at 39. I just like, all right, well.
39?
Yeah, she was 42 in the ring. She started at 39 because she was looking for an outlet because she was very like upset and depressed because her mom died of ovarian cancer. So she was boxing was like her therapy.
Yeah.
And I guess she looked really good in the gym and they brought her in and she was knocking out like people on her level, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like.
Okay. So they're like, all right, we don't have anybody to fight this person. Let's put her in. And like, when I first was watching the card, I literally looked away when it started. And then I looked back and she was on the floor knocked out. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And then when I watched it on replay, I was like, when she got out of the corner, I was like, oh my God, this is not okay. Like she was not prepared for that
match.
And yeah, that's like a third fight as a new pro fight, like not someone who's 17 and 0. That's
crazy.
Horrible. They should be ashamed of themselves for that. That's not right.
Yeah, they just served that poor woman up to die.
Yeah.
Like man. Oh well.
Shane Mosley Jr. was on the card too. I've seen a lot of him because I watched the new Contender series. I don't know if you remember the Contender series from
yeah. I remember the old one. Yeah.
Yeah, so the new one was actually a lot more serious. It's actually very good. I don't know if it's like syndicated anywhere. It was on Epix, but Andre Ward hosted it, and they had Freddie Roach as one of the coach, and Brother Naazim was the other coach.
Oh, so they have real coaches, like
so you got Roach. A really good intimate look at like a lot of these guys, and these guys were, pretty good for that level. And Shane Mosley was like the favorite to win the whole thing. I think on name recognition, probably. But he ended up losing to this guy in the final named Brandon Adams, who actually ended up fighting Jamal Charlo.
Oh, okay. One of the Charlo brothers. Yeah. Yep.
Shane is good, but like I think he's just good. He's not like I don't think he's world championship caliber.
Yeah, I mean,
I think a lot of his talent is literally because he's Shane Mosley's son. So it's a lot of like filter down stuff, but I don't think that he's not like a natural. He's just good at it because he's been around it his whole life. So
I mean,
I think
it's
there's a
hard to
cap
say.
on like how high he can go, I think.
It's hard to say whether someone's a natural, right? I guess like someone's like naturally really really good at boxing or not, but versus training, because like where that line is drawn is very unclear. But I think you're right. I think your overall point is right about there might be a ceiling for him.
Yeah.
But
He
we will see.
looked all right. He didn't look that bad. But I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know the guy he was fighting, so who knows? But
What do you
pretty much
think
it
of
for that.
DAZN being back? Like, this is like for good, or is this like you think we're gonna get this another couple cards and then there's gonna be a corona outbreak and we're gonna go back to not having it?
I don't know because the zone hasn't been doing that great without boxing, and there's a lot of talk about them getting like bought out or trying to find investors to like stabilize the ship. Because they missed out on a lot of stuff. AJ was supposed to fight in the summer. There was supposed to be a bunch of
Yeah,
Dillian White fights in the summer. Canelo was supposed to have 2 fights.
the Canelo
Triple
fight,
G,
yeah, is what kind of saves them generally, right? Because they
yeah,
just they do so well. That's why they paid him all that money.
yeah. But he still has to get paid that money. Like he has like an
He's
actual like
guaranteed.
I
Yeah,
get
he's
$36 million a fight, whether I'm fighting Triple G or whoever the fuck. So like that's a problem because they can't find people to fight him. Because no one wants to take a pay cut to fight Canelo when Canelo's not taking a pay cut.
pay cut. Yeah, no, totally. Who would you put to fight Canelo right now?
I think you gotta get the best you can get. Like
So
I
who?
said, the whole thing about it is that we don't know whether we're gonna get crowds. If there's no live gate and they're not fighting on pay-per-view because they're on the zone, there's not a lot of incentive to fight Canelo because unless you knock him out, you're probably not going to get a fair shot, even if you are outboxing him. At this point, he gets $36 million a fight for 10 fights.
They're not about to let him lose in any of
Yeah.
those 10 fights.
Unless I don't know how you would have to beat him up bad.
And he's pretty good. It's not
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that's easy to do.
Exactly. So like, it's hard to fight. It seemed like every day because like it was supposed to be Billy Joe Saunders, and Billy Joe Saunders was like no, and Tom Smith was like yes, but there was no, and now it was Willie Monroe Jr. But I haven't seen any confirmation about that. But whatever, I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know. It's not worth it to me at this point.
It's not worth it, right? It's not worth it to fight Canelo in
If
the
you're not
middle
going
of
to
a
get paid
pandemic.
for it, it's not
Yeah.
worth. It's not
in
worth
in
it
the
in
middle of
my
a
opinion.
pandemic. It's not worth it to fight Canelo because of like you said. He's gonna get his 36 million. You might not get nearly as much because you don't have the live gate. It's not gonna be on pay-per-view. There's just and DAZN doesn't have millions and millions of dollars to give to you because they're in such dire straits anyway. So
Right. Yeah.
it's not worth it. That AJ fight might save him if it happens,
Yeah, but even the AJ fight, he's just fighting Pulev. He's not fighting Tyson Fury on there. So
we gotta wait
but,
for the Wilder Fury 3.
Yeah. So it's complicated right now. It's complicated for any live sports, but especially like
except apparently for the UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think
we haven't done that episode yet, but it's very clear reasons why that is successful.
Yeah. Oh yeah, monopolies. When you're Mr. Monopoly Man, it's very easy to win.
Yeah, exactly.
But I figured it'd be a good transition point to talk about the most recent fight night, and that happened last night as of recording today. What is today? Today is the 26th of July. So that was Whitaker Till. It was a pretty decent card. The prelims were relatively exciting. There were some decent fights. I think we should just start off at the main event and go from there. Main event was interesting. It was very kind of a technical fight. They were both kind of hesitant to, just start going balls to the wall because both know the other is dangerous. Bobby Knuckles really did show out, though, and showed why he was champion and showed what he was. I think a lot of people who weren't familiar with the division before Izzy didn't know how good Robert Whitaker was. And now he's showing how good he was, right? Because he's been out for a while, right? He was injured. He has so many roadblocks when he was champion.
He spent 50 minutes with Yoel Romero.
Yeah. which is crazy, right? And he didn't.
and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, and he won. He beat him.
Yeah, he lived and won. Yeah, so exactly. So
Yeah, he won, right?
if he wants to take a year off after fighting Yoel Romero twice for 5 rounds and winning
Can't be
both,
mad at him. Can't be mad at
do
him.
what you got to do, man.
Yeah, but last night Bobby Knuckles showed why he's so good. I would say Till looked good, except Bobby Knuckles looked better. Whitaker looked better. That's all there is to it, right? It's not
Which
that
is
Till
saying
looked
something.
bad.
I thought Till looked really good.
Yeah, it's not that Till looked bad. It's not that he didn't do well. It's not that he wasn't on his game. His takedown defense was doing super well. His ability to like hit Whitaker, especially in that first round, he showed all the right signs. It's just Bobby Knuckles has a much wider range of MMA techniques and much more, I think, relevant MMA experience at this level, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so when you're fighting someone who's that well-rounded, they're able to give you a bunch of different looks and they're able to knock you out. You got to be careful. It's kind of the argument of like, how far does a specialist go versus how far does a all-arounder go, right? And it's a very big argument in MMA. Like, you can be someone who's really, really, really good at striking or really, really, really good at grappling, and that can get you really far. But then at some point, the ability to show different looks and the ability to be competent in all spaces really does make a difference. Because the reason Whitaker won that fight ultimately is because he was able to mix in the takedown attempts with his striking, with his calf kicks. He was able to clench him. He was able to show that he had other threats that kept Till thinking,
Right. It really looked like a mixed martial artist fighting a kickboxer.
Exactly. And that, I think, was the big difference last night. What did you think?
More or less the same. I was very impressed by Robert Whitaker's just overall like technique. I kind of came into MMA a little after the second Yoel fight, so a lot of what I've seen of Robert Whitaker has been like going back and looking at it, but I never really got a chance to look at him up close, except for the Izzy fight, which I thought he actually looked good in that fight too, until he didn't. But
he was just burned out.
Yeah, and you could see the difference. You could really see the difference in between the Robert Whitaker that came into the Izzy fight and the Robert Whitaker that came into the Till fight.
That body language was so different, man.
Yeah.
You looked at him and you saw a different person.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to force himself to get up for that. Not like in the sense of like he thought Izzy was not a worthy opponent, but it was like he just looked like someone that was tired and was like trying to force themselves awake. He
looked like he was having a bad day at the office. He's just like, man, I got to go in today. This is my day off. Like, he didn't want to have that 9:00 meeting. And, sometimes it whoops your ass if you're not ready for it.
Exactly. Till looked really good too. His feints are incredible. His footwork is really good too. He kind of reminds me a lot of like Tyson Fury a little bit, like the way that he uses his feints. And like it's kind of ironic because Fury was training with him for MMA.
I'm about to say, they did train together.
Yeah, but like, it was interesting to see. I think, I still would want to see. We talked about this offline. I want to see Till and Izzy fight. Just gotta think that would be a really cool fight to watch. I mean,
everyone wants that fight.
Obviously, that's not going to happen.
Izzy really wants that fight too. He was tweeting about it. He's like, "Man, stay up, Dad.
Yeah,
I want to fight you one day."
Do you think Robert gets a rematch shot or the next title shot?
I think no. It depends, right? I think obviously if Izzy loses to Costa, I think Whitaker might get a shot. I think if Izzy wins, Whitaker's got to beat one more guy. Because, well, this is hard to say, right? Because I'm saying this because of COVID, more or less.
Right.
I don't. Like, I think in the usual way this goes, I think Izzy beats Costa, Whitaker gets Izzy again, right? Because they both had a fight since they last fought, both won, so they fight again.
Right.
Or if Izzy loses to Costa, Costa fights Whitaker because Whitaker won and then Costa won, right? I don't know in COVID times how this works out.
So I think if Izzy beats Costa, I think Whitaker gets Cannonier, and that winner goes to Izzy.
That makes sense. Jared Cannonier is the dark horse of that division. When is the last time Jared Cannonier's fought?
He fought Hermanson in the summer, and
This summer?
last summer,
Last summer, last
2019,
year. Yeah, okay.
and he was supposed to fight Whitaker, I believe,
Yeah, it didn't
and
happen.
then he tore his shoulder
Yeah,
muscle
he
or something
something
like that.
his labrum or
Yeah,
something.
so he's been out. But yeah, he was supposed to fight Whitaker, and he was also supposed to be the on standby fighter for if Yoel Romero missed weight.
That's a really tough fight to come back to after being out a year to have to fight Robert Whitaker back in form.
Yeah, but you don't get tune-ups in
You
MMA.
don't get tune-ups in MMA. That's true.
Yeah,
You don't get tune-ups in MMA.
and
What
even if
else?
he and even
Still,
if he didn't fight Robert Whitaker, he still has to fight a top 10 guy, and
that's true.
they're all dangerous in the top 10.
I was gonna say I thought maybe Cannonier would have to beat up Till, but I don't know because I don't know what you do with Till.
Till fights Hermanson.
Really?
I think so.
I
Because
guess yeah.
He can't fight Gastelum again, obviously.
Yeah, you can't fight Gastelum again. Hermanson just beat Gastelum, so yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Man, Till really does get murderer's row here, huh?
But I think he wouldn't have it any other way.
I mean, he chooses these fights. Like he calls out the best people and he fights the best people. I really like him at 185. It's
Yeah,
the only time that I haven't seen him like, just be like look disgusting.
yeah, he looks really good at 185.
So also on this card, there was a really bullshit decision in Esparza versus Rodriguez. I think you and I both disagreed with the judges on that. We did not see how Esparza won that fight or
Yeah,
why
she
Esparza.
gets a lot of interesting decisions. Though.
Just like, what did they see there?
Yeah,
Like her takedowns didn't do much. She got swept a couple times when she did get the takedown, and then as a result got ground and pounded. Like I don't think that was the right fight, quote unquote, like to let her win. But judges are gonna judge.
Like
Yeah, judges are gonna judge.
we're gonna talk about the old man fight.
No, I don't want to. We can.
Not really. There wasn't much. Shogun beat Lil Now next. The Verdum and Augustus' fight was interesting.
That was actually that was interesting. Interesting is the best word for it, right? I think Gustafsson can do well at heavyweight. He didn't look terrible, but as soon as that fight went to the ground, it was over.
Yeah, I mean, but that's Verdum, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best submission specialist probably ever at heavyweight.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think he's just one of the best practitioners of grappling at heavyweight. Like, all respect to Daniel Cormier and his Olympic wrestling, but like, I think if there was a grappling only match, I think Verdum would win.
Mm-hmm.
Because Verdum's beaten plenty of high level wrestlers at ADCC before. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Twice.
Yeah, so it's just like I don't think there's a single person at heavyweight who beats Verdum on the ground, purely on the ground, obviously.
Yeah. Maybe Mir. But even then, I don't know.
Maybe I don't think so. I don't think so because yeah.
Pitched at the Chael Sonnen for a submission on underground.
Oh God.
But yeah, I think that was a bad matchup for Gustafsson for his first fight at heavyweight, but that's not really that important. But I think he brings an interesting style to that division because his footwork is really good and much better than most heavyweights. He doesn't look that small, but he also was fighting a smaller heavyweight, so we don't know. But he didn't look like Gian Vellante fighting at heavyweight. He just looked like he didn't cut weight, which is fine.
Yeah, and he looks like he still got his bounce, He was still bouncing on that front leg. He was still moving around. Like from the little that we saw, it looks like he could have a future here if he wants it, And if he's truly not not burnt out anymore, which is why he retired in the first place, then I think he's pretty good. So there was a bit of controversy on this card with Herb Dean. There was basically Francisco Trinaldo defeated a guy named Jay Herbert. Trinaldo's 41 years old, by the way, and he basically like took it to Jay Herbert and like knocked him the hell down, and then just kept beating on him. And Herb was a little late to stop it. And
I'm not mad at that.
Dan Hardy was
Yeah.
yelling at her.
So I'm very quick to be like, stop fights if it should be stopped. But I could see why Herb did not stop it. Whether he should have stopped it or not is a different question. But I think you could clearly see why. Like, yes, he was starched for like a second. But then when that 1 second, he did kind of attempt to defend himself, which is what I saw Herb saw. So he let him go. But I understand why there was some controversy there. I just don't think that might be too hard for Dan Hardy is a professional fighter, so I'm not going to say that he was wrong, but like for people who are watching from their couch, I think in that sense it's kind of hard for us to be like, you know what, maybe that was a late stop.
I agree with you. Like there was definitely some sign of like he definitely like went out and came back in again, right? So he he hit the mat, he was out for a sec, he came back in again. He
probably hit the mat and came back.
That's why he came back, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Herb has a tough job, obviously. I like you err on the side of caution, stop the fight early, save a life. But I can also see why Dan Hardy was quite upset, because if you're sitting cage side and you hear that thunk of the punch and then you hear that thunk to the mat, in your head, especially cage side, like when you can hear it, and because there's no crowd, it's much easier to hear. You're like, why isn't this stopped? He can't see what Herb sees, Mm-hmm. So I think that's why that happened. But I at least wanted to address it because I know some people were like in an uproar about it.
So I took a quick look at the middleweight rankings.
Okay.
I forgot that Brunson and Shabazian are fighting this week.
Well,
I didn't forget that.
I forgot they're both middleweights. I
forgot that could be a potential fight for either Till or Hermanson.
Whitaker. Yeah, we completely forgot about
Whitaker. That. Probably not Whitaker.
Well, it depends. It depends because...
Well, if Shabazian wins, maybe, because Whitaker knocked out Brunson, I'm pretty sure.
A while ago, though. Yeah. But you're right. That's already happened. But I think if Shabazian wins, then maybe. Because I just don't know where this goes with COVID. But then again, where they're from, COVID doesn't exist anymore because they have a relatively intact government. Mm-hmm. So UFC could literally just go do an event there and be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some options for Till and Hermanson. There's also the inevitable winner between Romero and Uriah Hall, which is an interesting fight also. But
that's another old man fight. All these old people just keep fighting.
Yeah, but things like logic doesn't apply to Yoel Romero. So
yeah, that the fact that him and supposedly Lil Nog are the same age, like blew my mind.
They're both 44. I thought Romero was 42.
I just saw a tweet last night. I saw a tweet last night. It could be just Twitter bullshitting, but I was like, someone sent a tweet that basically said Yoel Romero and Lil Nog are the same age, and one looks like this, and the other one looks like this, and I was just like, what? But even if they're 42 and 44, that's still, they look ridiculously different.
He's 43. Romero's 43.
Romero's 43. So that's, definitely close enough.
Wow. He is. I don't know if there's supplements involved or not. Like, even if there's supplements involved, like that is a crazy
really looking hard. Person. Yeah.
It's a crazy looking person.
Speaking of like dangerous middleweights, last night we saw him at welterweight, but Hamzat Chimaev, which is like the new guy on the block who just seems to be starching people, like the new Khabib at 170.
He wants to keep going. Dan says put him on another card in 2 weeks.
This is ridiculous. Like, this guy is a machine, like I don't understand how this guy is this good. I also don't understand how he makes welterweight.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's huge. But he's 8-0 and he's doing really, really well. And it's really interesting to watch him. I mean, I don't quite understand how he's doing this.
Because is he from Dagestan, or he's like Greater Russia?
I think he's from kind of that general area, right? But I can do a quick Google and tell you. Because I don't understand who this guy is, where he came from, but he is pretty amazing. Like every single UFC fight I've watched him in, he just does better and better. And he's only 26 years old. He was born in 94.
He's younger than me. Well, younger than you too.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like that was unexpected. But just thinking about like the
He's from
fact,
Sweden?
well, he like trains there. He's
Okay.
definitely Russian, but like he like trains in like by way of Sweden or something, you know?
Yeah, Chechnya. That's kind of.
Oh, he's Chechen.
Yeah.
Oh, he's different. So Dagestan is definitely near Chechnya. It's not super far. Don't kill me, geography guys. But in the sense that culturally they're not super far from each other. Both like heavily Muslim populated areas. Chechens have a very independent spirit. Not going to get into geopolitics on this podcast, but they are also a very, very tough people. And they are their own people for sure.
Yeah, man. All of those like
Pseudo-Russian
former
guys.
Soviet Union areas, that like
Yeah.
the way that they train for combat sports is just completely different than anybody else.
It's
You either
the
get
drill.
like the killers, like Khabib and this guy, or you get like these like extremely potent technicians like Lomachenko.
Zabit.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that there's just this, and we can cut this out too, but like the fact that there's like these like pockets of like really like interesting martial arts. Like there's just like a village in Dagestan where they have all these high level wushu fighters. Like it just seems so random to me.
Yeah, it's like a dude that learned Sanda came by there one day. They all like, huh, we like this Sanda thing. And then all of a sudden one of them becomes Sanda world champion.
Yeah, exactly. Like what?
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Is there anything else you wanted to go over on this fight card?
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay.
I like Paul Craig a lot. He's the Scottish heavyweight. That was like relatively cool to watch. But other than that, it was a pretty Oliveira.
It was a nasty triangle he put that guy in.
Yeah, he definitely did the whole position before submission thing. He locked up his legs in the diamond, did the right thing, made sure that the arm was in as well. So if he had to transition to the arm bar, it was there. It was just really cool to watch, like very solid fundamental jiu-jitsu happen in MMA from it especially. And so that's why I like that fight. But I did want to hit on Oliveira and sort of the whole like how well he used his front kicks and how well he used almost like a taekwondo style with his hands low, giving them the ability to sort of move left to right and slip, but also
he's old too, isn't he?
Yeah, Oliveira's been around. Yeah. He's been around. And just that unique style of like being able to keep your hands down, being fast enough to get out the way and use your hands for balance, to keep your guard out, to keep your, like he kept his right hand out in front of him, but still low, and just spam those kicks, those front kicks, those side kicks, all those kicks. It was pretty much a clinic to watch. And that was pretty cool. Definitely a different side of striking that you don't see every day.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for now, right?
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's anything else. No.
All right.
Do a quick box right.